Hello, welcome. Hope everybody's enjoying their lunch right now. Um, so today we're going to talk about serving up lemonade because so many people I talk to talk about these stories. Excuse me. They talk about these stories where life has been throwing lemons at them, right? And of course, you're supposed to make lemonade out of all those lemons. Or, if it's been throwing limes at you, you can make margaritas, or maybe it's throwing snowballs and you're making slushies, whatever it is that, uh, whatever terminology that you want to use on that. So you've been through some sort of challenge, some sort of struggle, and you come out on the other side even better, is the best version of you, right? So when you're serving up lemonade, you need to write about it. So I wanted to do a little training today where we're going to talk about three things that are really important for you to know when that is your goal with your book. And I see people on already. So hello, welcome. And in case you are watching this and you don't know, I'm Corey Walmsley and I help professionals, especially coaches, speakers, and other people who want to be known as leaders write their transformational story and get that book out so they can make a huge impact in the world and make change and make the world a better place because that's what we're all here for, right? So I'm going to dive right in here. And if you have questions, you have comments, go ahead and comment in the comments. And if you're watching the replay of this, I will get back to you as soon as I get a chance to. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. So one of the cool things, once I've worked with one of my clients on their book, is that they usually say, this is the kind of book I needed, or this is the book I wish I had when I was going through what I was going through. So I like to start at the very beginning of the process, which is probably where you are now, and think, what is the book that you needed? That is the best perspective to have when you sit down and you first start writing your book, because as you are going through your process, even if you have to like sit down and be like, okay, what did I need to know at this point? What did I wish what tools did I wish I had? Or who did I wish I could have leaned on? Or what did I wish that somebody would have said, oh, hey, just go here. What are the kind of things that I wish I knew at that point? What book would I have wanted to guide me through this? And that's going to impact not only what you're putting in the book, it's also going to impact your tone. It's going to impact your style, because you might be somebody who really needed, somebody to step up who's really funny and can, make you laugh in the middle of this, or give you, fun pointers, or really take your mind off of whatever it was you were going through. So maybe if that's what you needed, then that's the kind of book you want to write. You want to write something that's really fun or funny, or gives like a twisted perspective on it. So this just popped into my head, so I'm going to talk about it. When I was pregnant with my first daughter, London, a friend of mine gave me this book, and it was called like the Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy or something like that. It was a girlfriend's guide. And the woman who writes these, she's done several girlfriend's guides, and this one was talking about pregnancy. And it was really funny, and it looked at all the different things that you probably wouldn't have thought to ask anybody. But if you did want to ask somebody, you'd be asking one of your girlfriends. You might feel a little weird asking your doctor. You might feel a little weird asking your mom. You might feel really weird sitting Googling it and then having your husband walk in and go, what are you looking at here? The goal of this book was to be the girlfriend that you could comfortably go to for advice. So she took it from that perspective. So that might be a similar perspective for what you have. Maybe you wish you had had a best friend who had already been through it, that you could sit down with them and say, hey, I have XYZ on my mind. Please tell me how to get through this because I am massively confused. Or, maybe you wish that you had a, high level doctor, or a, grandmother who had already, been a Fortune 500 business owner or whatever, and you could sit down with her. That might be the perspective you want to go from. So don't feel like you have to be trapped in this, like, I'm going to write this and this is how it is. You can have like a fun perspective. And that was one of the best books that I've personally read that really helped me out, was that like girlfriend's perspective. Most people want somebody who's you know, who's like in their inner circle. So you want to kind of convey that, like, hey, I'm inner circle with you. I'm somebody close. You can trust me. That's the kind of book. And depending on what you're writing about, it could be anything. Like I said, it could be a best friend, it could be a grandparent, it could be a like a doctor or somebody. But think about who you wish, even who do you wish you could pick their brain, and kind of come at it from that perspective. I actually don't know if there's any, like, grandma's guide to running your business, and grandma was like a Fortune 500 business owner. That would be really cool. So if anybody out there is thinking about writing that, you can have that. That is a free idea for you. But that would be a really cool perspective to come at it from, is, whatever that inner circle person is. And, you know, so those of you who are watching, I see I have a bunch of people on. Tell me, can you relate to that? If you can, just drop a comment, give me a smiley or a yes or something. Can you relate to that? Does that sound familiar to you? Have you sat down and said, wow, I really wish I had a book, this specific book, to guide me through whatever challenges I went through? Because that is the comment I get most often when I work with people. I wish that I had this book when I was starting my business. When I worked with Melanie Calusi, who was one of my first coaching clients, that was something she said several times in the process, was, wow, I really wish that I had a female business owner back when I was early in my business saying, here, do this, do this, do this. You're not alone. I do understand. It all makes sense to me. It'll make sense to you later. Um, so she said, this is the book that I wish I had. And that really stuck in my head over the years. Was, that was something that really stood out to her. Um, so yeah, so that was the first point. That was what I wanted to talk about, because it's really important to get that under your belt. It's really important to look at it from that perspective. And before I forget to mention this, I did want to say that right now I do have some author Kickstarter sessions that I'm still offering. I did have one snapped up this week already. I have two left, and it's Thursday, so they're probably going to be gone pretty quickly. So if you are interested in my author Kickstarter session, it's 60 minutes with me, and we talk about positioning in the industry, some of the very basic things about storytelling, and really knowing what kind of story you want to tell, so you can be successful when you get started on your book. And if you're interested in that, just PM me or comment author Kickstarter, and I will make sure that I message you with that information. So let me jump back in on point number 2. The second one is what feels good to write, because you don't want to write a book that doesn't feel good to write. And I know we've all been stuck at some point in our lives where we've been assigned something and told, you have to sit down and write about this. You have to write about, your medical history, or you have to write about this, this research that you did for your biology class. You have to write about this explorer for your history class, whatever it is. You've had to write something that you just felt like, please, let me come down with a flu bug so I can be over this. So I don't actually have to sit down and do this assignment. We've all been through that before. It doesn't feel good to write. And the truth is, when you are writing something that doesn't feel good to write, the reader knows it. The reader sees that you didn't enjoy writing it. It's not, it's not, it's not just because, you're drawing like evil faces on the page. It's a lot about your language. It's a lot about the cadence of your sentences. They can tell when you're annoyed. The same way that, and I know I always give this example, the same way that when you are writing to to a company to complain about a product, maybe you ordered something and it broke, and you're like, hey, this broke after it got here, and I'm going to need a replacement part. Could you please provide that? If you're really angry about it, like if it was something that was an emergency sort of thing, or maybe a medical sort of thing, or something that you've been dealing with frustration over it because it's not being fixed, that comes through. The person on the other end at that company can tell that you are mad. The same thing happens when you're writing a book you don't enjoy writing. So you do have to step back and not only say, hey, what's the book that I wanted when I was at that point in my life? You have to say, as I'm writing this, is this feeling good to me? Am I writing about stuff that I just don't enjoy talking about? Or am I focusing too much on the drudgery piece and not on the success piece? Um, you have to think about that, because if you don't, then you're going to end up with this book that feels like a pain in the butt to read. And newsflash, nobody is going to finish reading a book that's a pain in the butt to read. There are very few books, I've read a lot of books in my life, and there are very, very few that I haven't gotten all the way through, partially because a lot of them were assigned to me because I have a bachelor's and master's in English literature, but also because I'm pretty dedicated to being like, okay, well, what's the end? Well, how does this come out? Well, surely something good happens, right? Um, but nobody's obligated to finish reading your book. And the biggest issue with that is, if you're trying to make change, if you're trying to help somebody with their lives, you want them to come through that challenge successfully. If they don't finish reading your book, two things are going to happen. They're probably not going to be able to make that change based on what you're suggesting. And if you wrote your book to work as a marketing piece, they're not going to get to the part where they go, yes, that's the person that I want to work with. So that's two issues there. So you're not helping them, and then they are not coming back to you. Which, any good book for your business is written with the intent of making it into a marketing piece, a heart-centered marketing piece, not slimy. Um, but if you aren't writing a book that's enjoyable, people aren't going to get through it. And I can tell you right now, there are some books I've read in the past few years where I've been like, I don't even like reading this. It's really frustrating to me. I read one a couple years ago. Somebody sent me a book and asked for a review, and I had to just be like, hey, I'm really sorry, but this isn't the kind of book that I enjoy. They told me to just keep it, and I did put the book in the recycling bin, because I'm green. But I was reading through the book, and I'm like, this book is such drudgery to get through. It was just a pain in the butt, and I don't need to get into details on that, but it was really not well written. It was not dragging me. It was dragging me through the story rather than letting me glide along like I'm on a raft in a river. Like, that's the feeling you want when you're reading a book. You want that joy. You want that elation. That elevated sort of feeling, like, hey, here was a challenge, but we've gotten through it, and here's the beauty of it at the end. If people aren't getting to that beauty part, then they're just stuck in the drudgery and into into the recycling bin. So that's the second part. Has anybody read a book that happened to them on, where you've been reading it and you're like, this is just not pleasant to read. This is not well crafted. This is not, this is not something that it doesn't feel like the author was enjoying this. Have you ever read a book like that? Tell me in the comments if you have, because I don't think I'm the only person who has. Um, yeah, so I'll watch for that. I think I'm actually lagging a little bit here because I haven't seen any comments pop up yet. But um, yeah, so and the fun thing is, whenever I talk with a client about this sort of thing, there have been times before where they've sat and been like, yeah, I don't want to write chapter 4. And then we dig into it. Okay, well, what's in chapter 4? What is it that you don't want to write? Are you hiding a part of yourself? Is this just something that you don't enjoy going over? Or are you just flat out annoyed with that topic? Maybe you're talking about, imposter syndrome. I'll just use that as a topic. Maybe chapter 4 is about imposter syndrome, and you're just like, God, I hate talking about it. I feel like it's been talked to death, and I don't have a new perspective. If that's the case, then hey, if you don't have a new perspective on it, let's not make that a chapter. Let's talk about something else that lights you up and gets you excited to write, because you don't want to sit down at your desk and do it if it's not exciting. And I know that seems obvious, but sometimes people who are high achievers, professionals who are like, yeah, driving to the next level, we will kind of tamp down our gut feeling. We'll tell our intuition to shut up, and we'll say, you know what, this is the path that I need to take, and we're doing it whether we like it or not. Full speed ahead, pedal to the floor. We're just going to shoot right through. But again, people can tell. They can tell it's not enjoyable to you, and they don't want to read it. So that's the second point. What feels good to write? It should always feel good to write. If it doesn't, that's when you stop and analyze why it doesn't. Okay, so I want to move on to the third point. Everybody's being very quiet, very listening ears on today, right? That's what they say in my kids' classes at school, listening ears on. All right, so the third point, and this is something, this I thought this was a pretty cool concept. I had a conversation with a woman a couple weeks ago. She's a coach, and we were talking about how we perceive when our clients are when people are ready to become our clients, because you take people in at different levels. There are some coaches who work with new entrepreneurs. There are some coaches who work with somebody who's ready for high level branding. There are some coaches who work with somebody who's ready to write their 10th book in their series, or whatever it is. There are different coaches for different things, and the way she put this was, where are you meeting clients on the ladder? And I loved that analogy because it's like you're going from where you are to where you want to be. But what she was talking about was seeding different things on the bottom part of the ladder, and then she comes in on like rung 4, for example, and takes them from rung 4 to rung 10. So that's something you have to think about with your book too. Where are you meeting your reader on the ladder? Just using that ladder example, uh, you might be somebody who works with someone who's been through trauma, for example, and maybe they have worked with a therapist. Okay, let's say that was rung 1. They've worked with a therapist. They are, they're up to rung 2 where they don't need to take medication. So let's say they've gotten that far, but they've really reached as far as they can with working with a therapist and getting off their medication and trying to be self-sufficient, but they still need help working through trauma and maybe, building their business or whatever. Maybe they have life goals from it. So you might come in on rung 3, and that's where you are starting your book. Rung 3, this is what you do. You're fresh out of therapy, and this is where we need to go from here. Or maybe you work with somebody who has, um, they've been through trauma, they've been through therapy, they're off medication, and now, they've fallen back into a new trauma. So maybe you work with people who have recovered and then had another life event happen. So, maybe you're coming in on rung 3 or 4. But that's something to think about too, is, where are you meeting people? Or like if you're a business coach, are you working with somebody who is coming in as a new business owner? Because, if that's what your ideal client is a new business owner, that would be more what your book should be about. It should be helping people who are either, thinking about a business because you're seeding that idea and getting them in to your coaching, or people who are new business owners and giving them that kind of like low level sort of basics so they go, oh yeah, she doesn't know what she's doing. All right, I need to work with her. So that's really an interesting concept, and I loved how she put that was, where on the ladder are you meeting these people? And it could be lots of different things. I love to use health coaches as an example too, because there are so many health coaches, and they come in at different points on the ladder. Maybe you've been through, you just want to get healthier. You just are tired of feeling tired, for example. So, maybe that's where that health coach is coming in. Or maybe it's at a point where somebody is hoping to lose, 20 or 30 pounds. Okay, that's a different point on the ladder. Or it could be somebody who's been through a lot of programs, they've worked with trainers, they've done XYZ, and maybe they've decided to go have gastric bypass surgery. So that would be, much further along on the ladder. Okay, you've tried all of these things. Now we're up to here. These are all the things you've been through. Now here's where you need my book. Yeah, so just lots of different examples with that. If you're thinking about something like that, you can put your business in the comments, and I'll kind of chat with you about it. Where would you want to come in on the ladder, and we'll go back and forth, because I'm really curious too about the different industries that everybody's in and what kind of book they're thinking about. Yeah, so usually whenever I'm working with clients on this, that's one of the first things we talk about is like, where do you want people to come in on this book? What are you going to be using it for? Um, what are you hoping to get out of the book? Because, that's different for everybody. Every single person has different goals with their books. You might see one person saying, you know what, I just want to give somebody a nice lead magnet. I want them to have a digital copy when they're coming to my website because I know giving away some of these very basic things are going to be beneficial to them. So I'm getting them ready to come to me for coaching. Um, that's one of the big goals is to have something that you can just kind of give away. So let me know in the comments what you're thinking about with that. And I did want to mention again that I have 2 author Kickstarter sessions left. And they are going to be snapped up pretty quickly. They usually are. I did some before Thanksgiving, and they were all grabbed really fast. But since you guys are in my group and you're really engaged with working on your book right now, I did want to offer that to you guys again. I do have a special investment rate for you guys too. So if you're interested, comment author Kickstarter, and I'll send you send you the information on that. It's a really nice session. We do 60 minutes via Zoom, and we talk about all of the basic stuff as far as where you are in the industry, what kind of book you're wanting to write, and all of those like nuts and bolts pieces that you need at the very beginning to actually be successful in writing the right book for you, for your industry, for your audience, something that will showcase your brand and really show off what you've done and help you get to that next level. So if you're interested, comment or send me a PM. I'm happy to send you the information and chat about what that session is about if you want. Otherwise, have a great day and yay.